everybody. Welcome to yet another edition of the Middle Georgia Spotlight. I'm your host, Jack Ellis. Always glad to have you with us here on the Middle Georgia Spotlight. We're very honored to have as our guest this week the senior pastor of St. Mark's AME Church and a candidate at St. Mark's AME Church from Orlando, Florida, and a candidate for the 10th Congressional District in Florida, and the former pastor and the architect of St. Paul AME Church here in Macon, a church known for its faith, by its faith, I should say, and he's none other than Dr. Reverend Terrence Gray. Welcome to our program.
It's my honor, my privilege to be here, Mr. Mayor. My pleasure.
Well, yeah, you know, the last person I thought I would be interviewing on it for a political show would be Terrence Gray. Now, I knew that you were an activist pastor while you were here, that you cared about the people outside of the walls of the church, but when did this, and I don't want to call it a bug, but a lot of people call it a bug, when did the political bug bite you?
Well, I think the political bug has bit me. It was biting me even when I was here. Whether you know it or not, if you take your mind back, there came a time when the commissioner's seat of Bibb County came open here in our area. And that was probably back, I've been gone now 17 years as of this year, so it's been some time ago. And at one time, Eliza Edwards and I were vacillating with whether or not we were going to run. And I was thinking and contemplating running then, but then pulled up from it and said I would give it a little bit more time and move forward. I went to a wonderful city called Orlando, as you well know. I watched you get elected to be mayor, and I tried to be a part of that, participated in what you did in this area in this time. Went to Orlando, only had one person who at that time was an elected official, but only watched St. Mark grow to the place where he now has 7 total persons, elected officials from all ranges, whether it's on the federal, state, county, and city level. I've always had this burning that said, you know what, if the door opens and I do not feel or see the right person that I feel will have a heart for the people and serve the people to go in that particular office, I think I might find myself offering myself. That's how I was. Might. Well, as fate would have it, last year when Val Demings, who was a member of our church and Congresswoman at that time, she was in the midst of being vetted to go to be vice president. And so she and I started talking then about whether or not it was something that I would do. That conversation then transcended to her deciding whether or not she was going to run for governor or senator or be in Congress or what she was going to do. And when she made up in her mind that she was going to run for senator, the conversation occurred again. But it became left open for an opportunity. Hey, let the Lord lead you, pray about it, see where you are. And when in the midst of me talking to God, Jack, you know, I believe in what we still call signs and wonders. And one of them was I couldn't rest. You know, every time I kept trying to say, well, this person ought to do it and I'll support this person, couldn't rest. It was at the moment that I said that I would do it and made the calls to say it's going to happen and I am running, that all of a sudden, Jack, I could start going back to sleep, lay my head down and rest. That was a peace. Now, if the scripture is still true, which says that he will give you a peace that transcends all understanding, then the confirming sign for me to say that I'm in his will and I'm on this path because he desires me to be so was that peace that the Lord gave me. And I have been watching the persons who are also in the race. It caused my heart to grieve. I said, hey, I got to offer myself because the person who has a heart for the people in this race is me.
Well, that's good. And you are not the first pastor. Let's say that you're not the first preacher to represent us at the State House or in Congress. Right here in Macon, Georgia, we have to be mindful of the fact that Henry McNeil Turner, Bishop McNeil Turner, we have a post office named in his honor here with the help of former presiding elder Benjamin Ridley and other ministers. We got that done. And he was a spokesperson for the delegation in Atlanta that was expelled during Reconstruction. So you have a long history, and then Adam Clayton Powell, and now Reverend Warnock, and on and on. So when people say that preachers shouldn't be in politics, I think we have a long history of preachers being in politics.
That's correct. You could also add in Floyd Flake, who at one time out of New York,
Brooklyn, that's right.
who recently is of our own modern area for our own denomination, has been an inspiration and a supporter. And you know, the beautiful thing for me, I could even say, Jack, that if there was a first time that I really got bit by the bug, if I take my mind all the way back, it goes back to 875 McDaniel Street in Atlanta, Georgia, when Maynard Jackson was riding on the back of that convertible, asking us to vote for him to have a chance to become mayor. I was a little kid and excited to watch him, and his spirit of parity and making sure the resources were divided equitably amongst people has sparked my heart and my energy. And right now I'm struggling. I'm sure that you struggle too when you hear conversations about minorities and really realizing that the word minority has been really reduced to the point that it can be a white female is now a minority, or a gay Caucasian man or white man is a minority if they own a business. Well, golly, I mean, hold up now, it's too many minorities in here. Why can't we go to the word parity? Taxation without representation is still occurring. And how can I make it a point to be a voice to make sure that resources are divided equitably based on the racial makeup of the community of which I serve? And I realize that even the area in which I serve, the 55% of Florida District 10 doesn't look like me. So at the end of the day, I've got to work that the resources are divided accordingly and put in place that's going to benefit the people, whether it's regarding health, whether it's regarding education, and especially senior health, because I'm overly concerned about that area right now. I'm very, very much concerned because of my own mother, who's recently gone through a transition from this life to the life to come. And understanding that home health care, Jack, oh man, if you do not have resources and if you have a plan for it, it can really break the bank. And we've got to find a way to make that equitable and affordable.
Well, all politics are local, as you know. So what are the main issues in the district and District 10? We know what the issues are here in Georgia. We need Medicaid expansion. I think you already have it there. What are the main issues in this district? I mean, the district as well as the nation, as you see it, that must be dealt with.
Well, I think I've tried to come down the street on the issue to deal with parity and deal with revenue and resources, because I do believe that when you start dealing with taxation, you've got to be in a position where you allow resources to go accordingly to certain areas of support. I think that's imperative. I think that's necessary. I believe also, Jack, you have to take the time to look again at the senior health care piece and healthcare piece all the way around. We have to be sensitive to it. I think it also, we have to be very serious about this piece that is almost a passion for me, and that is education. You know, I struggle now, especially right now in the state of Florida. Can you imagine that my governor is a person who's against wearing masks? And we're not wearing it right now, but you're vaccinated, I'm vaccinated. Thanks be to God, you know, we're socially distanced, we're not all up on each other. But to know that my governor is advocating for my students and my children to go to school without masks and to not be, they don't have to, quote unquote, all be vaccinated. There's not this major push that's being done, which says that there's not serious governance. There's not a serious approach to how we get it done. There's not a serious dialogue about how do we sit with each other to converse, that we have maybe opposite but can find the common ground that can build the future ahead. Those kinds of things, as I watch, bothers me, hurts me, creates my passion. Because right now, inside of the wonderful city of Orlando, or whether it's Winter Garden, whether it's Gotham, whether it's Ocoee, all those wonderful places, we're able to sit together. We don't look like each other, but we have found common ground that allows us to have common issues. Healthcare, education, the next generation, senior care, and lastly, our religious values. Man, do you realize that it hurts me that the other people, the GOP, calls themselves a moral majority? It hurts.
The Christian Coalition.
Man, you hear me? It bothers me. But how long you been a Christian? Off and on, a number of years. I served as your pastor. I've been a Christian now 56 years, but I'm a Democrat. But for some strange reason, there's no respect for me being a Christian, and it means something. And I've come to understand why. It's because over here in the part of the Democrats, they allow people to have abortions, and they have no problem with it. because they believe in a choice. They call it pro-life. Now, you and I both know they agree it's not really pro-life, it's pro-birth, because them same people hollering pro-life have no problem with somebody being executed. Now, you capital punishment. Now, hold it, if you're pro-life, then you got to be pro-life. Also, you're not really pro-life because all you are is pro-birth because you're concerned about the child being born, but you don't educate that child through no kindergarten program, no Head Start program. You're not trying to support that child to go through high school or college. Now, if you can't be with that child from the beginning all the way through from college time, then you can't say you are pro-life. But that's their argument. And because persons on the other side of the track are pro-choice, you're not Christian. And because we accept persons to be whoever they are based on their sexual orientation without judgment, oh, you're not Christian. Hold up now, I don't know what Bible you read, because the Bible I read does not find itself being that condemning except for in certain places, just as it was in certain places for women being in leadership. But now we're in a society where you can accept women in leadership, but you want to condemn everything. Everybody always got to find a reason to say who can't get in. Well, I think we got to find ways to open the door for everybody to get in.
You started this conversation, not the conversation, but the answer with about your governor and about COVID. Are you in 100% support of President Biden's mandate for federal employees to get the vaccine, to be vaccinated?
I can truthfully tell you that I am open to it. And I would never find myself coming all the way out saying, I'm just going to automatically say it's got to be done, but I'm definitely open to it. I think that we have to, again, Jack, you and I are, we're in that era where you got to know how to build coalitions. I can't fight you, I can't beat you, which is a problem on both sides of the fence. We've got to learn how to build bridges, not barriers. You know, Jack, I was raised in an era where you look persons in the eye, you shake their hand, you connect to them, you find coalitions to mandate anything that's going to be problematic on both sides of the fence. We've got to learn how not to force it, but to work with people to adapt, and to connect.
Yeah. But should there be any compromise on this pandemic? More people have died in this pandemic than the 1917, 1918, which I have, through my research, found out that both of my grandparents died during that pandemic.
They did?
Yes, my father's mother and his father during that pandemic. So this is serious stuff here.
I agree.
So are you saying that following the science, listen to the doctors and everyone else, knowing that by getting this vaccine, that the people that's in the hospital now, that's taking up our beds, are primarily people who have not refused, for whatever reason, be it health, religious, not taking the vaccine. So I want to make sure that you're on record saying that it should be a choice?
No, I'm not saying it should be a choice. Let me give you what you hear me saying is, I don't think we ought to do it like this. Good case in point, my son. I knew I should have known you were going to come down this street, Jack. My son, Terrence, was the only person in my house that had not had the vaccine. The only one of my children. And I kept trying to fuss with him to get it done. Because he's my child. I'm arguing with my child. Go get it. He was just adamant. No. Then all of a sudden I stopped fussing. I fact him. I showed him that 0.0019% of the people who've had an opportunity to get the vaccine or the persons have had some kind of problems with it. Because he was trying to tell me, oh, the vaccine doing this, it's hurting these people, hurting that people. But I fact him. I stopped fussing with him. I met him on common ground. And I began trying to help him to see the benefits and the why reasons, not trying to force it, but find the right conversation to bring us to the table where he ended up going to get it. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm saying I'm for the vaccine. But I think where we start missing the mark is where we keep missing the mark.
Yeah. Well, in Congress, you have to vote on a lot of foreign issues, and right now we've just witnessed what happened in Afghanistan. But on a closer point, in your home state, there are a lot of Haitians, a lot of Puerto Ricans as well, but a lot of Haitians, and we see about 10,000 Haitians under a bridge.
Yeah.
And the way that the government has responded versus how we responded for the Afghan, what do you have to say about that? What's your take on that?
Well, I can push the envelope even further, Jack. Do you remember when they had the major earthquake some time ago?
Yeah, 10 years back.
And I had the chance.
250,000 people lost their lives, by the way.
And I had a chance to go over with a number of wonderful people, missionaries and supporters, and had a chance to see these persons in what you might call just coverings in the name of tents, but really wasn't tents. Never got houses, never got homes. That industries or in the name of charitable donated areas supposed to be building their houses never got built. I've watched the pain and I've seen the suffering. My heart goes out to people in Haiti, especially considering the fact that we know that they're treated unfairly based upon what I contend is their other people's racial makeup. What do you mean by that? I want you to read the book by Robert Jones. You should have read it by now because Robert is out of Macon, Georgia, a little bit. The book is called White Too Long. In it, he basically has had an opportunity to describe how persons who don't look like us have been indoctrinated by their religious principles and their religious study to see you and I not as full men and as humans and should be treated that way. So when you have an indoctrination of people who do not see us already as human beings, do not see us or appreciate who we are individually or see that we ourselves are worth saving, they treat you that way.
Yeah.
So when people in Haiti, you want to know why? Because they don't see them worthy.
Terrence Gray sitting in Congress, the bill comes up, we got to deal with the refugees. Cubans, dry foot, wet foot, they stay. Haitians, both feet dry or wet, you go back. What kind of, the immigration policy, and you have a lot of immigrants in your district.
We do.
I'm sure, and
We have
throughout
some
Florida.
In Florida.
What would an immigration bill look like that you could support, that you would vote for? Would it be the DREAM Act that President Obama talked about? It would talk about the ones coming out of the shadow, or what have you. What would an immigration bill look like that you could support?
Something similar there, but even more, Jack. One that becomes a way in which goes to Scripture, because you can't get rid of the preacher out of them. You can't get rid of the pastor. Whosoever will, let them come. How do I create an environment where when people come, I'm able to serve if they are willing to have the need? You tell me, is that not what we say we are? A Judeo-Christian community? A Judeo-Christian nation? Well, if we are, then let's act like it, which means we find ways in which we can help people. Now, what does that also say? It does not mean that everybody becomes a burden for the taxation, because everybody cannot be sustained by just revenue that's coming from the individual's taxes. We've got to find ways to empower people to work and empower people to do jobs and empower people to be assets to our areas, which is not something that we always do. So you now got persons who have come who, quote unquote, are of another nationality or ethnicity, and they've gotten jobs or they've started businesses and they've been successful. Why can't persons from Haiti come and do likewise? Because inside of our area, even right now, one of the ladies who's one of our commissioners is a Haitian, and she's done a great job.
Well, you said earlier, you're a man of the cloth.
Mm-hmm. I am.
You're a follower of Christ, and the Prince of Peace, if you will. But you will have to vote. The Congress, the only one that can authorize men and women to go to war. How does that line up with your faith when it comes to voting to send men and women out to participate in violent acts to defend the country or to try to do nation building as we did in Iraq? and Afghanistan. Knowing those two issues, both of Afghanistan and Iraq, we're going to use a little what if. Yeah. What if you had been sitting in Congress? Would you voted to give the president authority to go to Iraq or Afghanistan?
Oh yes, most definitely. I mean, you if not, I want to say, Jack, you do read the Bible, right? You do. If you read the Bible, Jack, then you know God ain't got no problem with going to war. The God of the Old Testament had no problem going to war. And last I checked, even the Jesus of the New Testament has no problem with war. So I mean, in relation to that, I don't. When people raise that question, I look at them and say, "Have you really read the Bible?" The Bible is nothing but you seeing politics, political issues, battles, wars, and etc. Whether it's Philistines and the children of Israel, whether it's the Ammonites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hittites, all them folk, they got issues. They had war.
Now, you mentioned education. You went to an HBCU.
I did.
Did my research. You went to the HBCU. There's a lot of talk now about forgiving student debt or trying to make amends for past wrong the black farmers have been taken care of. Now that a lot of black students are carrying a lot of debt when they. Would you be for forgiving? The president talked about it, VP Harris, to forgiving all of the debt that they're carrying when they leave college.
I can't say all, Jack. I mean, there again becomes
based on need, I would say.
I would come back to dealing with needs as well as what profession is this person going in. Let me give you a case in point. Let's say a person is about to go into an area of social services, or a person is about to go into a teaching profession, or they're going into a profession in which they're going to be able to give back to community in service. Then I think we have to take under consideration the forgiveness. Okay, now a person who's about to find themselves being into technology, and a technology that doesn't have a slant towards quote unquote giving back to community or helping the advancement of the nation, and it's only for your profit, then are we gonna forgive that? I have some concerns about that. Again, it becomes finding what is going to be good for the masses, helping the people, and being open to the dialogue and the communication. Because each issue that you raise is varied. So to give a blanket check to say that you're just going to forgive all debt, that's great. But don't you think it would be much more better to see if you have service-oriented professions that are going to be forgiven over against areas where a person is solely going to benefit financially for themselves?
We're speaking with Pastor Terrence Gray, who is the senior pastor of St. Mark's AME Church in Orlando, Florida. He's a candidate for the 10th Congressional District there, but he's sojourned here in Macon in Macon, Georgia for a long time. He was an activist, as I said, not only inside of his church, but throughout the community. But let's get back to the separation of church and state. It's enshrined in our Constitution.
Okay.
What does that mean to you? Some people say take prayer out of school. We took prayer out of school, and others will say prayer should be in home anyway. But people do pray in school every time they take an exam. They say, but on a serious note, what does that mean to you as a congressman, when you look at a man of the cloth? Now you I would say a politician. I wouldn't say but you're a representative now, so you're and part of the government. Where does it end the separation of not separation of powers, but the church and state?
It's funny that you asked that, Jack, because every person that presently is in Congress, or any person that has ever held any kind of office, has always brought their religious values and principles to the discussion. You can't walk away from it. It's who you are. When we start talking about separation of church and state, what are we really saying? That my core values do not come to this conversation? They do. What I have to begin recognizing is when I deal with it, that I cannot make the church. I can't make people say a generalization of the church or one faith being the only thing that the governors can therefore operate out of. But I can never say the church and state are divided, because they're always intertwined, because my psyche has been indoctrinated based on my Christian principles and it will shape my actions when I'm in Congress.
A lot of talk has, I'm sure you will join the Congressional Black Caucus, as your predecessor is,
Of
the
course.
young lady that you're replacing. Sheila Jackson Lee and others in the Congressional Black Caucus have put forth a bill to study, a commission to study reparation, something that I happen to believe in, put that right out front. Where do you come down on reparation?
I don't have any problem with reparations. I really don't. At the end of the day, I think it ought to be, as you say, studied, evaluated, determined. And I think that I have always said, in my personal opinion, the best way in which it could be done is the resources we give to HBCUs, which is something I think we have to really focus on. We have not been as supportive of undergirding those as I think we should. I do want to celebrate the work that has been done in the state of Florida that's been worked on for a number of years by a host of persons, whether Senator Joyner or Senator also Representative Bruce Antone, and ultimately also what we've had as far as Senator Sipling, as well as also now Senator Bracey. All of them have worked on that, and I think they got the ball across the finish line, which I celebrate. But I think we have to find a way for reparations that are for communities, and I think one of those ways, I think, is HBCUs.
Well, we know it costs a lot of money, but there's a $3 trillion bill on the table right now, infrastructure. Where do you come down on the infrastructure bill?
I think that every time
rail, fast,
I'm for it. I just say I'm for it. I'll be right there. I believe that every time that you begin the process of working and creating ways in which your community can benefit, that's serviceable. I use the service, and I'm also blessed to have an opportunity to also make some money from the service. I mean, you got some businesses that are going to benefit that are primarily American owned, and you also have a service that the Americans are going to also take advantage of and be provided by. I think every time you do that, it's a win-win. We just have to keep looking at ways to make that happen.
Well, Pastor, we're almost out of time. 30 minutes went fast. I guess time goes when you're having fun. But obviously, we wish you well.
Thank you.
All of us here in the Macon, Georgia area who know you, and hopefully those that we're introducing to in the first time will find ways to support you from afar.
Thank you.
We know that you have a website, and you can give that website so people can go and donate some money for you.
It's terrencegray.org, TerrenceGray.org. You can go directly there, and it'll bless me. What I always ask for, Jack, is if people will pray for me every day, put my name favorably in front of others, plan to have fun, and put some money into the campaign when you can.
Well, we wish you well.
Thank you,
and
sir.
We're out of time. And we thank you all so much for joining us here this week on the Middle Georgia Spotlight. We've been speaking with Pastor Terrence Gray, used to be the senior pastor here at St. Paul AME Church in Macon, Georgia, was the architect of that church known by his faith. And now he's the senior pastor at St. Mark's AME Church in Orlando, Florida, and a candidate for the 10th Congressional District for the U.S. Congress in Orlando, Florida. Thank you. Thank you very much.
God
and
bless.
thank you all for joining us. Until next week, I'm your host, Jack Ellis. Goodbye.
Oh, God bless you, brother.
All right.
Love you.
God bless you.